What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today I'll be riding solo talking about my favorite rookie targets to snag on waivers following your typical 4-round rookie drafts. Guys that can be had for the cheap and don't require you spending beloved draft capital on, though after hearing their upside, you may even feel inclined to spend your last rookie pick just to ensure that they get onto your squadron. So by now, you would have seen Bush's outline of his favorite 3rd and 4th round sleepers to take, and if you haven't already seen that, link will be in the description of this video. But my job is to really take it to the next level, dig deeper, and really talk about guys that nobody in this industry is really showing love to. Using DLF's rookie ADP, I came across 5 names and 2 honorable mentions outside of their official top 48 ADP drafted players that are necessary additions to your dynasty teams given their low cost of acquisition and potential upside they possess. So going to be counted down from 5 to 1 of my preference. It's my job to sweet talk y'all and bless the knuckle cracking, back stretching research to find these gems so you don't have to. But before I do that and scoot to 5th on the list, I'm going to hit the intro on y'all. Okay, so let's start out with number 5 on this list. So on the screen right now, you will see a picture of the player before I kind of get into them, kind of give you the juice. And that's going to be Ihmir Smith-Marsette, wide receiver from the Minnesota Vikings, who was drafted with the 5th round, 157th overall selection in the 2021 NFL draft. So Ihmir Smith-Marsette, or ISM for short, we're going to be referring to him as that in this video. He's a very exciting receiver prospect that was added by the Vikings at pick 157 to ultimately complement what you got with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. We know those are the 2 top dogs, the 2 top alphas in this wide receiver core. By adding Ihmir Smith-Marsette, he can immediately compete for that wide receiver 3 role and really adds an element to this offense that they haven't really had at that role in recent years. So looking at the team as a whole from 2020, they vacate 62 targets, with the majority of them coming from the tight end Kyle Rudolph's departure. And talking about tight end, the Vikings really failed to address that position with any significant capital. And to me, that screams volumes for a potential transition for this offense, because in 2020, according to Sports Info Solutions, Kirk Cousins actually led the league with 248 dropbacks and 226 of his 519 total passing attempts coming from formations with 2 tight ends on the field. And with the departure of Kyle Rudolph with no real substitution, we could absolutely see a transition to more 11 personnel sets given the Vikings moves this offseason. Talking about Ihmir, the player, he can line up as your prototypical Z in 2 wide receiver sets if Thielen or Justin Jefferson are not on the field, and in 3 wide receiver slots. This is a guy who has some slot type versatility, and what he does for this offense is having that vertical ability to really stretch the field and give Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen enough space to operate in the intermediate and second level. So ISM, if you were to just look at the production at Iowa, you might say, it's not really that good. Why didn't he produce in Iowa? Why did he only have 700 yards this year? But after you watch the games, the quarterback play at Iowa was horrendous. Like, the only quarterback play I can really comp it to might just be Michigan, because I've had to deal with that for the past 5 years of Shea Patterson, Jake Rudolph, Wilton Spate. But anyways, let's not get into that. But with that being said, I mean, you'll hear this as a theme, but with ISM, he's really a guy that if you are able to stash him, if you are able to give him time, able to really nurture him, let him develop, he could end up turning out in a Robbie Anderson type fashion for this offense, given his natural ability, given his natural role on this team. And for the price of maybe just fab, maybe not even fab, to be honest, depending on what team or what league you're in, I think it's a slam dunk type of acquisition. And the fact that he's only at number 5 on my list, get ready, because we got some heat coming for you. That being said, let's go on to number 4 on this list, and that's going to be Tommy Tremble, tight end from the Carolina Panthers, who was drafted in the 3rd round with the 83rd overall pick by the Panthers in the 2021 NFL draft. Now, when you're actually looking at Tremble, to me, he's one of the draft's most intriguing balls of clay, and he lands with arguably one of the most creative minds in the entire NFL, who has a huge need at the position. All of these things really came to fruition when we saw Tommy Tremble selected with the 83rd overall pick by Joe Brady and the Carolina Panthers. So again, I'm not going to come out and say Tremble is the most ready to go tight end prospect we've seen, going to step in, going to be 1,200 yards, whatever. Like, he's not going to do that, but he needs some seasoning in the receiving game. Because let's be honest here, 401 career receiving yards doesn't really indicate a guy who's ready to step in the immediate receiving role. But given his prowess actually as a blocker and his elite athletic ability, he should be able to see significant snaps right away. And on the screen right now, you're going to see his relative athletic score. If you guys haven't already followed Math Bomb on Twitter, must follow, great content. Puts these out every single time a prospect is drafted, prospect is coming up in the process, as soon as these numbers are available. But actually, according to his compound RAS at 8.9, he was actually the 103rd best tight end in terms of RAS and 927 charted tight ends since 1987. So to sum it up, you're basically getting an athletic freak. While he's may not be the most developed receiver, should see significant snaps to really earn and develop in that type of fashion, given his blocking ability right off the bat, and links up with one of the most creative geniuses running the offense in the entire NFL. Does that sound like anybody to you? Does that sound like any tight end that you've heard in these past few years? I don't know. I mean, it may just sound like this guy right on the screen right now. Because if you actually compare his RAS to Kittle's coming out of Iowa, it's very similar. I'll put both of them on the screen so you can see. But Kittle was one of the most athletic freaks to come out at the position in quite some time. And as you guys can see, he was 34th out of 463 qualified tight ends at the time. And when you're basically summing up Kittle's prospect profile, I mean, he was kind of underdeveloped in the receiving game, 737 receiving yards and only in 48 collegiate games. Not really something to be all that impressed with, but he got on the field because he was an athletic freak with great blocking ability and linked up with Kyle Shanahan in the 2017 draft. Now, am I saying, is it fair to say and compare any tight end prospect to frickin' George Kittle? Absolutely not. Am I willing to scoop up this package of athleticism, draft capital, and coaching creativity to get Tommy Tremble on my freaking taxi squad? You absolutely have to bet on this type of athleticism, this type of talent. And quite frankly, the 83rd overall pick suggests to me that Joe Brady saw what he could do with this clay and is going to be able to mold him into the player that he needs him to be. Tommy Tremble, despite not having that elite production, high-end production, was still a very good tight end prospect coming out of Notre Dame. The reason why he didn't really get a ton of work that a lot of people would have expected is because last year you got Cole Kmet running the show, who was a second-round 43rd overall pick by the Bears. This year, guess what? 5-star Michael Mayer stepped in as a true freshman and was unbelievable, who's probably going to be a first-round pick in 2 years. Take it easy, guys. Tommy Tremble is still a good player despite not producing. Take that shot on that athleticism. This guy's going to get on the field. This guy's going to be pretty good. And he's undrafted. Like, why wouldn't you take the shot on this guy? But that being said, we can head into number 3, and that's going to be Simi Fehoko, wide receiver from the Dallas Cowboys, who was selected in the 5th round, 179th overall in the 2021 NFL draft. So if you're actually analyzing it, like, are you guys really surprised? I mean, did you really think you're going to get this whole video without me even remotely mentioning a Dallas Cowboy? Because it was happening. It was happening. But let's dive a bit into what Fehoko does, why I really like his potential in year 2 in the Cowboys offense. So you guys can see on the screen right now, I referenced RAS for Tommy Tremble. Let's get into Simi Fehoko's RAS. A 9.17 score at 6'4", 220 pounds. Yeah, you read that correctly. With Fehoko, you're getting a guy with great speed and vertical ability. And in 2019, he was a player who averaged 24 yards per reception at Stanford, turning 24 receptions into 566 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Yeah, that guy is a freak down the field. And the Cowboys' 3rd and 4th receivers are only on 1-year contracts currently, with Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson's deals both expiring following the 2021 season. And with Fehoko, he really represents that requisite athlete who has the upside to develop into the Cowboys and Dak Prescott's wide receiver 3 and deep threat of the offense as soon as 2022. And we know this offense, if he is operating, first of all, if he's operating through wide receiver 3 in this offense, an offense that should be putting up 30 points per game, we should be expecting this guy to be a wide receiver 3 at minimum if he develops in that type of role. With the Cowboys currently slated to be $30 million over the cap in 2022, according to SpotRack, it just doesn't really make any sense for them to bring back Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson, hence the 5th round selection on a guy in Fehoko who, while may not being able to step in year 1, could absolutely develop into that role for year 2 and on. And we've seen when Dak Prescott is healthy, this offense can support fantasy viable options. I mean, this is going to be an offense who, quite frankly, is going to be humming and hoeing. And if you're actually looking for a comp as terms of what Fehoko can do for this offense, kind of think of a Chase Claypool light type impact for this team. A big outside receiver who can stretch the field, who can work DBs on the boundary, who can really get into space. And when he's into space, I mean, that 4.43 speed that he has is going to be able to separate. So with that being said, I mean, give me all the Fehoko I can possibly have. And for a guy that you can throw on your taxi squad as a raw boom bust receiver talent that should continue to appreciate in value over the season because of the opportunity he has in 2022, I'm absolutely going to take that any chance I get. Let me just explain what I mean in terms of appreciating in value, right? We're going to hear the narrative throughout the season going into next offseason that Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson are on one-year deals. People are going to recognize that, be ahead of the curve. Fehoko, once people realize that, people are going to be willing to pay more for Fehoko than they currently are right now in their rookie drafts. This guy should be selected in rookie draft, but the fact that he isn't just gives you so much of an advantage over the rest of your league. That being said, let's get on to number 2 on this list, and we're going to actually end off with 2 running backs, a little sneak peek. But that being said, Jared Dokes, running back from the Miami Dolphins, who was drafted in the 7th round, 244th overall by the Dolphins. Let me just kind of give you the vision. Just close your eyes, listen to my voice, because let me smooth talk you into Jared Dokes from Miami. The Miami Dolphins finally drafted a running back. Finally, they drafted a running back. And that running back, again, people wanted them and clamored for them to pick one in the top 50. They had 2 first-round picks. They had 2 picks in the top, 2 other picks in the top 50. They're surely going to grab a running back. Instead, they grabbed a guy who, quite frankly, has the talent to intrigue in the 7th round with Jared Dokes. So on the screen right now, you'll see his relative athletic score. And this is a guy who has the workhorse size and enters really an intriguing opportunity in a backfield that truly lacks a clear stud. I mean, Gaskin and Ahmed are going to be the public favorites to really lead this backfield early in playing time, with Malcolm Brown filling in rightfully so after them. But Dokes is an intriguing option to pick up. And again, I'm going to say this all video, but stash on your taxi squad while analyzing the situation. Malcolm Brown is a unrestricted free agent following the season. Gaskin has no team commitment and is a UFA following the 2022 season. And Salvin Ahmed actually expires after the season as well. So you guys can see a quote on the screen from Joe Marino of the Draft Network. But he basically says for a bigger back, what Dokes does is he has more quickness and elusiveness than he expected. What tempers the evaluation for Dokes is the injury history that he was never consistently a catalyst for offensive production at Cincinnati, despite some really impressive flashes. Situation and opportunity could end up being major factors in the career Dokes ends up having. There's a lot to like about him and what he brings to the table. He mentioned situation for Dokes. This is a situation he landed in Miami that truly lends himself a prime opportunity to show out. And if you're going to compare any running back in this class to what James Robinson was in 2020, the ambiguous nature of the backfield, the opportunity ahead of him, the requisite talent despite falling in the draft, Jared Dokes presents all of those things. And if you're not scooping him up post-draft for at least the chance to be able to establish himself with the Dolphins, you're doing fantasy football wrong. Finally, end off. Number 1 on my list. Were you surprised about the Dallas Cowboy? Well, don't be surprised when I mention my Michigan Wolverine. And that's going to be Chris Evans, running back from the Cincinnati Bengals, drafted in the 6th round, 202nd overall in the 2021 NFL Draft. So just analyzing Chris Evans, the player, he's really one of the most interesting cases in the entire RB class throughout the 2021 cycle. Because if you actually look at his numbers at Michigan, he peaked as a freshman in 2016, which you don't usually see. But let me just give you the full story, the full context before you completely harp on this guy for being 24 years old and coming off his worst collegiate season, quite frankly. So as a 19-year-old freshman, Evans exploded onto Michigan as an incredibly efficient change of pace back, working in release of Davion Smith, the team starter at the time. And if you actually analyze his numbers, he rushed for 614 yards on 88 carries and averaged 4.15 yards after contact per attempt and had a 52.1% breakaway yardage percentage, combined with the fact that he had a 132.4 elusiveness rating on receptions, which would have ranked him 6th, 7th, and 6th, respectively, amongst his class on an efficiency basis, if you compared them to the 2020 numbers of this class. The question with Evans has never really been about his talent. It's been as to why the situation at Michigan really eroded so suddenly and how he went from this breakout freshman who touched the ball at an efficient rate, averaged 7 yards per rush, was very good as that 19-year-old freshman, to touching the ball 25 total times in 6 games in 2020 as a 23-year-old senior. Let me give you the breakdown, though. So I mentioned that 2016 incredibly efficient season. He was phenomenal. In 2017 and 18, despite Evans' true previous successes, the team opted for Karan Hagnon to be that lead back role for the Wolverines. And then in 2019, when he was set to be the Wolverines' leading returning rusher, fill into a prominent role once again, Evans encountered academic issues that wiped out his entire 2019 campaign. When you're looking at this year, why didn't he produce this year? Well, Michigan really developed off of that 2019 season. They brought in a 4-star recruit in 2019, Zach Charbonnet, who was the leading rusher. So Evans was never going to supplant him. And then Evans was once again left for dead and saw his role diminish with the emergence of Hassan Haskins out of this backfield as well. So really, you're seeing a guy who broke out that 2019 season. He kind of lost his role in the offense. And when he came back, he was seen as obsolete by this Michigan coaching staff, who saw these younger, higher pedigree backs coming in and really taking his role. Now, when you're looking at Evans, he is still the athletic and efficient change of pace phenom we saw from him in 2016. He just really needs the opportunity to finally be able to show his freakish athleticism once again. Now you enter the Cincinnati Bengals. Fresh off the release of Giovanni Bernard and needing a change of pace back to complement their workhorse in Joe Mixon, taking the chance on Chris Evans with the 202nd pick. Now, talk about Evans. If you took Gio Bernard and gave him super soldier serum, the byproduct would be Chris Evans, which is oddly fitting considering the actor's name, if you guys haven't seen Captain America. That being said, you can see the athletic scores on the screen. Just absolute insanity from his explosion metrics. Nearly a 41-inch vertical and over a 10-foot broad jump, both ranking 95th percentile or higher. The only measurement that he doesn't rank 89th percentile or higher, aside from his size metrics, is his 40-yard dash, which is still very sufficient at 4.52. So for all the people talking about being back in on Joe Mixon, can we at least just recognize that Chris Evans has a serious opportunity to be as much or even more of a pest than what Giovanni Bernard was for the team in recent years? Despite coach speak saying they don't want him to leave the field, expect Evans to really be in this mix as soon as Mixon inevitably drops a crucial third down pass. Because we all know that it's going to happen. Coaches are going to say what they want. Something's going to happen on the field. Guess what? You change your way just like that. And for a guy in Joe Mixon who has never been that 350 touch per year workhorse that people want to make him out to be, simply because he doesn't produce in the passing game to that level, why are we expecting tendencies across his career to just change because we want them to in fantasy football when they drafted a sufficient change of pace role type back in Chris Evans, who in his career at Michigan, while he didn't have elite production in the receiving game, was still very, very efficient in this aspect of his game. He averaged 9.8 yards per reception out of the backfield in his career and averaged 1.61 and 1.87 yards per route run in 2016 and 17, which would have ranked 4th and 6th, respectively, amongst his class in 2020. This is a talented kid that just needs the opportunity to get on the field. And with Cincinnati, he has that prime opportunity to establish himself as a true featured part of this committee. So with that being said, you got to the 5-1. What are some honorable mentions I can kind of leave you guys off with if you already got those 5, or if you just want one other? We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about Tamorrion Terry for a little bit, wide receiver from Seattle Seahawks, and he would be so much higher on this list if he got drafted. We talked about multiple times in depth on the channel, but this is a big, fast receiver that, in our opinion, both mine and Corey's, had day 2 type talent. And while he did not get drafted, he really lands in a spot in Seattle where he can compete. And if he ever gets an opportunity, which is one of the best deep ball throwers in the entire league, when Russell Wilson, if we're talking free, you're getting this guy for free. You're scooping him up. You're adding him to your taxi squad. This is a guy I had a top 15 wide receiver grade on in this class. So I'm easily going to be able to fork over that type of capital to ensure he's on my team. And finally, I'm going to mention Sage Surratt from wide receiver from the Detroit Lions. And despite being a UDFA signing, Sage Surratt really enters a receiving core that is wide open for opportunity. And Rashad Perriman, Tyrell Williams, and Geronimo Allison, A, are not going to inspire anybody, and B, are all in particular on 1-year contracts. If Sage Surratt shows up in training camp, plays well, plays like that guy who was considered a day 2 type pick going into the season before he opted out, I'm absolutely willing to take the risk and stash him again. The theme of this video, don't pick any of these guys up with huge expectations for year 1. They're all going to be taxi squad type guys where you stash them, you wait, 2022, maybe they develop into something. If you're going into this with huge expectations for guys that aren't even picked in your rookie drafts, you're doing your dynasty drafts wrong completely. But with that being said, if you made it this far in the video and you enjoyed the content, comment Danny Solo, because quite frankly, with the exam season, with everything I've been doing on the side right now, I haven't had time to really connect with you guys as a one-to audience, if you will. It's always really been me and Bush. So if you made it this far, comment Danny Solo. New little addition to the channel that you haven't seen in a while. That being said, peace out, y'all.